Hello everybody! Today I'm going to be reading my new Doctor Who story that I wrote yesterday, and it features the third Doctor and Liz. And by this time, Liz has actually been in the TARDIS and she's gone on her first adventure with the Doctor, and they just come back from that adventure, and this is where we start off the story today. The technician was thrown against the wall as the machine continued to increase in temperature. It was becoming unstable and sparks were flying out of it. Suddenly the whole machine burst into flames and there was a terrific explosion. All the technicians in the sector were totally wiped out. The director stood up from his desk and headed to the main control room. As he turned the corner, he was horrified to see the entire control room in flames. He noticed a young female technician lying on the floor. He knelt down and examined her. She was quite plainly dead. The shock of the blast must have been so strong that it sucked the life out of her. The director reached into his pocket and produced a small communication device. "This is Dr. Phillips. Section 6 has ceased functioning. 12 men are dead." In the TARDIS, the Doctor was working the controls, while Liz sat quietly on a chair reading a book. She read to the end of the page, then stood up and joined the Doctor by the console. "Can you really get us back to Earth, Doctor?" she asked. "Well, of course I can. It's just the TARDIS is getting a bit jittery in her old age," he responded. "Is it quite safe?" she inquired. Yes, of course." The Doctor flicked a switch and the TARDIS began to spin uncontrollably. The Doctor tried to steady it, but it was no good. The TARDIS tilted violently and Liz went flying into a wall. The TARDIS was now swaying frantically in space. Inside, the Doctor was clinging onto the console and attempting to land the TARDIS safely. Finally, he grabbed the lever on the console and steadied the ship. The Doctor immediately started to locate the fault. Liz pulled herself up from the floor and stood next to the Doctor. "What happened?" she asked. "Some sort of fault in the system. I'll take a look," he responded. Liz wandered out of the control room and tried to find the bathroom. She felt rather sick after being thrown about in the Doctor's TARDIS. She found the bathroom and went inside. The bathroom was of the richest quality. Everything looked extravagant and flamboyant. She found a basin and washed her face with some water. In the control room, the Doctor had found that the stabilizer cord had been cut. This meant that whenever the Doctor attempted to land the TARDIS, it would simply cause the time vessel to swirl out of control. The Doctor was extremely frustrated by this, but he was more concerned about who sabotaged his ship. The director was in his office. He had just about had enough for one day. He walked over to a cabinet and took a key from his jacket. He put the key into a cupboard, and inside was a large bottle of whiskey. He unscrewed the cap and poured himself a glass. He threw the drink down his throat and poured himself another. A woman entered the office. "Sir, Dr. Krill wants to know if we should proceed with the generator experiment." "Don't you ever knock, woman," he muttered. "I'm sorry, sir, but this is rather urgent," she added. "OK, what's so urgent that you had to disturb me?" "Dr. Krill wanted me to ask you whether we should proceed with the generator experiment," she repeated. "Yes, of course. Why wouldn't we?" "Well, I thought because of the recent damage to Section 6, she began. "Oh, pish-posh! That was a technical fault!" he exclaimed. "Let me remind you, sir, 12 men died!" she snapped. Yes, you're quite right," he muttered. She walked out of the room, and the director poured himself another glass of whiskey, and downed it in one. He poured himself another, and repeated the action. Suddenly he heard a whirling noise coming from the corridor. He staggered towards the door, and watched as the TARDIS came to land. Inside, the Doctor had managed to make a temporary adjustment to the stabilizer, which meant they could land safely. Liz walked into the control room, where she observed the Doctor, who was hidden under the console. "Have you discovered the fault yet?" she whispered. "Yes, someone sabotaged the stabilizer control," he grunted. "Sabotage? By who?" she asked. "I'm not sure, but I intend to find out. Come on, let's see where we are." Outside, the director was examining the TARDIS. He watched as the doors magically opened. From inside came the Doctor and Liz. The Doctor greeted the director. "Hello, I'm the Doctor, and this is my assistant, Liz Shaw." "I see. And you think it's okay just to dump this pile of crap at my doorstep? I'll have you know, sir, this is a highly complicated piece of machinery." "Oh, is it? Looks to me like some old police box," the director sneered. "Look, can I talk to someone in charge?" demanded the doctor. "I am the director of this establishment." "Are you, sir? Well, I have to say this is the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen." "I'm just having a little drink. This place is falling to bits." "Oh, really? Why is that?" "Beats me. One moment they're working okay, and then next, boom, it goes up in smoke." "I think I'd better take a look. Liz, you stay here with him," he ordered. The doctor slowly walked down the corridor and left Liz alone with the tiresome drunk. The doctor walked down a corridor till he came to a lift. He entered the lift and pressed the button to take him to the 9th floor. Suddenly the doctor was catapulted into the wall. The lift was shaking like crazy, and then all of a sudden it stopped. The lift had been compressed, and the doctor had very little room to move. His head was bleeding, and he could not feel his arms. Meanwhile, Liz had dragged the director into his office. She took the bottle of whiskey and locked it away in the cupboard. She laid the director on the floor, and then sat down in a chair. The telephone began to ring. She picked it up and said, "Hello, director's office." "Who is this? Where's the director?" he demanded. "The director is unwell. I'm looking after things," she asserted. "And who are you, miss?" he questioned. "I'm Elizabeth Shaw," she proclaimed. "Well, Miss Shaw, another one of the machines has just exploded," he explained. "What level are you on?" she inquired. "The 7th, miss," he reported. "I'll be right there," she insisted. Liz looked at the director, who was now passed out on the floor. She hurried along to the lift. On approaching the lift, she noticed that the doors had been blown out. She looked up the lift shaft and could see the broken-down platform. She entered the shaft and began climbing up. The doctor's arms felt paralysed. His efforts to get the sonic screwdriver had failed. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking sound coming from below his feet, which was preceded by a familiar voice. It was Liz. "Liz, help me! I'm trapped in here," he shouted. "I'll go up to the next level and try and get you out," she announced. Liz climbed down the lift shaft and then ran up the stairs to the 7th floor. When she reached the top of the stairs, she was greeted by an unholy sight. Just as before, the entire room had been engulfed in flames, and all the people had been killed. A young man wandered over to her. "Hello, I'm David Gretching. I'm a scientist," he added. "Come on, David, you must help me. This lift is stuck and my friend's inside," she stated. David ran over to the lift door and tapped the button. The whole lift seemed to be immobile. "We need a crowbar to get this open," he snapped. "Yes, well, we haven't got a crowbar," she pointed out. "Well, what are we going to do, miss?" "From what I gather, this is some sort of research facility," she pondered. "Well, sort of. We've discovered a new energy source that was embedded in the ground." "And you're testing it to see if it's safe?" she questioned. "Well, yes," he replied. "I see your tests haven't been going very well," she taunted. "It's early days," he responded. "Anyway, we must find a way of helping the doctor. Come with me. There might be something in the TARDIS." Liz and David bolted down the steps and back to the TARDIS. Just seconds after they had left, one of the walls began to pulsate with a red glow. Inside the lift, the doctor had fallen unconscious. He was becoming weaker and weaker. All of a sudden, there was a creak, and the lift shifted slightly. Then moments later, it shifted again. The lift was beginning to break. Liz and David reached the TARDIS and stepped inside. David was immediately taken back by the dimensions inside the spaceship. He stepped back outside and walked around the police box. Liz joined him, now holding a secondary sonic screwdriver and a crowbar. "Stop faffing around, we've got to save the doctor," she bellowed. David followed Liz back down the corridor and up the stairs. When they returned to the 7th level, they were startled to discover the doctor had disappeared. The doors had been prized open and the doctor taken out. He couldn't have got out. He must have been badly injured. The doctor had been taken underground somewhere. His captors had left him in a cage. After regaining consciousness, he stood up and examined his surroundings. It was dark and gloomy, and there was no life about at all. Opposite him was a large stone table with vials of chemicals on it. The doctor felt dizzy and once again collapsed on the floor. The doctor came round, and as his eyes focused, it was finally revealed who had captured him. The creatures approached the cage and peered in. Liz was making some adjustments to the machine when all of a sudden the machine caught fire. David and Liz headed for the doors. "Come on, quickly! This room is going to explode!" he screamed. They both sprinted down the corridor as the room erupted into flames. They ran down the steps onto the 5th level. "I want to see the source of this energy," she announced. "No, it's too dangerous," he urged. "We must go, otherwise we'll never find out who has the doctor," she said. The doctor was tired and exhausted. The room seemed exceedingly hot. His captors just stood there and examined his behaviour. From what the doctor could tell, the two creatures were arguing. One wanted to destroy the doctor, and the other wanted to save the doctor for questioning. The doctor had dealt with these creatures before. He knew some of them were committed to the old ways. Liz and David reached the shaft that led down into the tunnels. David offered to go first and started climbing down a small ladder. Liz followed, and after about 10 minutes they reached the bottom. Almost instantly they heard a large growl coming from the distance. The tunnel was pitch black, so anything creeping up on them would surely have an advantage. David passed Liz a helmet with a light on top. As the light shone out of the torch, Liz began to see her surroundings. There were several different pathways leading into different parts of the tunnel. "It's this way, I think," David instructed. "Be sure," Liz snapped. "And at this moment we have to stop because my computer, without instruction, shut down. I did not give instructions for this, and it shouldn't have shut down. I give the commands about whether it should shut down or not, but it just completely disobeyed my instructions and shut down anyway. Fucking insult." You need a lot of water when you're telling these stories. Still waiting. So just to recap, David has said, "I think it's this way," and Liz says, "Be sure." Then David looks at the map, and then in the distance, Liz could see a dark figure approaching. She tapped David's arm, and he looked up. The figure appeared to be unarmed. David produced a gun. "No, don't! It's unarmed. It can't hurt us," cried Liz. "You want a bet?" David snarled. The creature remained still for some time. There was a faint ringing noise coming from somewhere, but Liz couldn't locate it. 2 more of the creatures appeared, and the group of creatures moved forward. "Why have you come here?" "We're looking for our friend. He's called the Doctor," replied David. "The ape must be destroyed! He carried a weapon!" shouted another of the creatures. As the creature drew closer, Liz began to see what they were up against. She gasped when they came into the light. "You're Silurians," she uttered. The Doctor managed to stand up in the cage. He summoned one of the Silurians over to the cage. "Look, what do you want with me?" he muttered. "You have great knowledge of this race. You will help us destroy them," shrieked the Silurian. "Have you considered peace with the humans?" gestured the Doctor. "This is out of the question! These apes will never make peace with us!" it shouted. "You've got to try at least," he responded. "We tried before, but the humans tried to wipe us out," it bellowed. "And you tried to wipe the humans out. I say you're even," he commented. "This is our planet! Why should we share it with these aliens?" the Silurian continued. "Because this planet now has a new owner. You left the planet for the taking," explained the Doctor. "Then we shall destroy them, and take the planet back," cried the Silurian. "No, you mustn't. Why make war when there can be peace? The time of peace has ended. We have given these apes too many chances. Now they must die," the Silurian announced. And that's where the story ends, just as it's about to get interesting. I stopped writing because it was getting late and I was tired and I wanted to go to bed, so I just stopped writing. There are no more plans to finish the story off, so that's where it ends. And a lot of my work sort of ends on cliffhangers, really, because it's just like, well, I can't write anymore.